Good morning. Can you all hear me okay? Can I get a thumbs up from people via Zoom to make sure that you all can hear me? Great, awesome. Thank you all. Good morning. Happy to be with everyone today. Happy to have the SLDC Board of Directors in person. This is actually the first SLDC Board of Directors meeting that we've had in person since I've joined the organization in 2021 due to COVID and other challenges. So excited to be taking this next step. So with that, I would like to call the meeting to order for the November 21st, 2024 regular board meeting that's been held in person at 8:04 a.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Director Arnold,
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Here.
Director Gilbert,
Here.
Director McBride,
Here.
Director Sean Spencer,
Present.
Director Reed,
Here.
and Chair Richardson.
Present. We have a quorum. With that, we'll move to the first item on the agenda, which is the approval of the minutes of the October 17th, 2024 regular board meeting that was held via Zoom. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So move, McBride. Second.
Roll call vote.
Director Arnold,
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director McBride,
Aye.
Director Spencer,
Aye.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With the majority present voting aye, the motion passes to approve the minutes from the October 17, 2024 board meeting. The first resolution that we will hear today is actually be presented by myself, which is resolution number 24, SLDC 973. This resolution amends the bylaws of the St. Louis Development Corporation to ensure that in the event of the resignation of the chairperson of the Housing, Urban Development and Zoning Committee, as well as the Budget and Public Employee Committee, or a successor committee from their ex officio seat of the SLDC Board of Directors, but not from the chairmanship of such automatic committee, the chairperson's ex officio seat may be filled in an efficient manner to be occupied by a participating member from such automatic committee until the chairmanship of such automatic committee changes. So in essence, we are seeking to address any, again, resignations from the SLDC Board of Directors. As the SLDC bylaws state, there are 9 total board members that sit within the SLDC Board of Directors, with the Board of Aldermen having 2 ex officio seats. One is the chair of the Budget and Public Employees Committee, and the other is the chair of the Housing, Urban Development, and Zoning Committee. Previously, our bylaws have not addressed the instance in which a chairperson of either of those committees would resign from the SLDC Board of Directors. And so this amendment allows for the president of the Board of Aldermen to select someone from that respective committee in which that chairperson has resigned to replace them. Are there any questions about the proposed amendment to the bylaws that is outlined in the Exhibit A of the resolution? Any questions?
No, I think it looks very good and definitely keeps the spirit of the appointment of the ex officio members in mind.
Yep. And from my perspective, it allows for the Board of Aldermen to continue to have some insight and oversight into the work that we're doing here within the Board of SLDC Board of Directors, as we want to continue the collaboration with our public officials and ensure that we are moving in the spirit in which SLDC was created and designed. So with that, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24, SLDC 973.
So move.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Arnold,
Yes.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director McBride,
Aye.
Director Spencer,
Aye.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With all present voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 973. The next item we have on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 974, authorizing the allocation of up to $5 million of new market tax credits for the Delmar Stage and Studios project. I believe we have our Vice President of New Market Tax Credits, Mr. Bill Seddon, on the line, who will kick off the presentation of the resolution. And then we have Mr. Chris Hansen here from the Kransberg Arts Foundation to give an overview of the project. So Bill, I'll kick it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Neil. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I apologize. It's been a while since we've had a project to approve, but I think we're going to be busy for the next couple of months. This morning, we're seeking the authorization to suballocate up to $5 million of new market tax credits for the Delmar Stage and Studios project in the Downtown West neighborhood. The Kransberg Arts Foundation intends to purchase and renovate the building located at 2233 Delmar, which is slightly outside Grand Center where Kransberg operates, but it's 10 blocks away and it's really kind of synergistic for what they're doing, as Chris will explain later. As you know, Kransberg's been very active in the real estate business in Grand Center and in business development really for many years. And they've been a huge force in sort of stabilizing and providing all the vibrancy to the arts and entertainment district. The owner of the building is Butler Merchandising Systems, and in several months they're moving to Hazelwood and vacating the building, at which time Kransberg then will purchase the building, or actually they'll begin the renovations and hopefully turn the building over early in 25 or 26 for the tenant to operate. Let's not confuse this one with the Butler Brothers redevelopment that took place on Olive and Locust, which is now the Victor Apartments. And this is Butler Merchandising, completely separate operation. This building is 92,000 square feet and comprises basically a whole block. And it's on Delmar and goes all the way to MLK in between 22nd and 23rd Street. And it sits directly across the street from the GPX warehouse. So it's already kind of a commercial distribution area. When the project is fully operational, it's expected they will have as many as 180 jobs in the building, which is a great thing for the city. And in fact, they have seasonal employees that can almost push that another 100 employees. So I suspect summer is a pretty busy time for them with concerts and so forth. U.S. Bank has committed to be the equity investor on this transaction. In fact, 2233 Delmar is less than a half a mile from their offices, as Neil definitely knows from his days there. But Chris Hansen, as Neil said, is here. He's the CFO of the Kransberg Arts Foundation, and he can give a little bit more flavor and color to the project and answer questions. Chris?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Bill, thanks for the introduction. Chris Hansen, I'm the Executive Director of the Kransberg Arts Foundation. We're thrilled to be here this morning to talk about the 2233 Delmar development. For the last few years, we've worked very closely.
I think we lost.
Are we here?
Yeah, we got you now. We lost you for a second. Thank you.
For the last few years, we've been working closely with the Logic Systems team to hopefully find them a home that would keep them in Missouri. One of the largest production companies in our region employs full-time skilled workers in the arts workforce through technical production. They install in all the major stadiums. They produce major festivals, conventions, events, and they're a very big part of our workforce and our arts and entertainment industry in general. They've been looking for new homes for years, and they were limited in their space in Valley Park, and they were starting to consider moving out of state. They do most of their business out of state. Logic is a key partner for us in our workforce development program apprenticeships, and they're also a key partner to us in a lot of our operations festivals, and we wanted to do our best to try to keep them here. We find them to be a very strategic part of our arts and entertainment ecosystem. After a couple of years looking and even considering building something for them, we were lucky enough to find this warehouse where it was for sale. And the Butler manufacturing team was actually going to be moving their 60 jobs over to Hazelwood. And we thought, what a perfect opportunity. We found exactly the amount of square footage that Logic Systems needed to relocate their core business and their subsidiary. It would be the new home of our workforce development program, embedding our training and apprenticeship holder in Logic Systems. And also part of this plan is for Logic Systems to start to imagine bringing more film, television, and music industry opportunities to the city of St. Louis. They have a vision for building sound stages and will be acquiring the vacant land across the street from this, a whole nother city block, to redevelop it, hopefully redevelop it as they put their teams together and their investments together. But they have a vision and a plan to build sound stages for film, television, and music on the vacant land and start that work right there on the 92,000 square foot on the parcel that we currently are in the middle of acquiring, which we close on that acquisition on Friday. So we're very excited about this. This is going to catalyze one of the most important workforce development programs in art and entertainment in the region. This is going to help us diversify and reseat, which is a very an industry that has suffered after COVID to ever rebuild its workforce. And it's an industry that suffered to really ever have any diversity because a lot of the seats in that particular industry have been filled for a long time. So we're excited to work with Logic, not only to bring them to the city of St. Louis, ensure they stay in Missouri, bring all their jobs to downtown, but also help them imagine how they can start to help us add new industry and make St. Louis a premier arts and entertainment destination and one of the great cities where the arts and entertainment industry can grow and thrive. And that's part of our work. We want to see more of that. We believe that this is one of the top tools in the toolbox for the region to start to come back. And this is the industry that we're committed to aligning our resources. And we're very proud to partner with SLDC to bring our investment alongside these new market tax credits. Hopefully, if you agree to give them to us, and we're going to make great use of them and bring jobs and vibrancy and new opportunities to the city.
Oh, this is great. Appreciate the presentation, Bill and Chris. Can you confirm, Chris, this is, bringing 150 full-time jobs to the city of St. Louis?
Yes, sir. This is going to bring roughly 150 full-time jobs, seasonal jobs, and when they add more investments, even more to come.
Awesome. Awesome. Any questions or comments from the directors?
Do we know what the average rate of pay is for these 130 professionals?
These are skilled jobs. These are technical workers, some warehouse workers, but a lot of audio techs, lighting techs. These are jobs between $60,000 and $75,000 a year or more. There's a lot of six-figure salaries in this particular organization. They're a very healthy and strong organization. They've been around for over 30 years. We very closely vetted all of their financials. This is a great organization that's employing high quality jobs, training in areas that are transferable to other industries, and I think will be a great addition to the city landscape.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, I'd like to entertain the motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 974.
So move.
Second, Sean Spencer.
Roll call vote.
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director McBride,
Aye.
Director Spencer,
Aye.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With all present voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SODC 974. Chris, we look forward to all of the great success of this project. Please keep us updated. And we look forward to seeing all the films that we produced highlighting St. Louis from this site too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. The next resolution that we have before the board is resolution number 24 SODC 975, authorizing the allocation of $5 million of new market tax credits for the stock legal expansion project. I'll pass it back over to Mr. Bill Seddon.
Thanks, Neil. We are seeking approval to sub-allocate up to $5 million of new market tax credits for the stock legal expansion in the Fountain Park neighborhood. The new market's proceeds will be used by Stock Legal to purchase and renovate the vacant building located at 4709 Delmar in a building formerly known as the headquarters of the Mavracos Candy Company. which goes back many, many years. The building is bounded by Delmar and Enright, and it sits just west of Walton. It's the same block of another new market transaction that we did several years ago called the Elevation Building, which is being developed by Kevin Bryant. So soon we'll have that whole block done, and the building to the west of that is Launch Code. So that's 3 in a row for new markets. So hopefully it'll have a catalytic impact over there on Delmar. So this $5 million, actually it's almost $6 million redevelopment will create a 20,000 square feet of office space for 2 legal firms and provide co-working space for attorneys. Sarah Stock is the owner of the 2 legal firms that will be the main tenants. Stock Legal will relocate from their office on West Pine and the Central West End. And their other operation, Legal Back Office, based in St. Louis County, will locate in the building as well. They provide legal management services. So both of those companies are owned by Sarah Stock. And the building will also have 6,000 square feet of co-working space, basically tailored towards attorneys and, solo practitioners and so forth. There'll be 4 retail spaces in the building, and apparently there's a gym operator looking to operate there as well. So some great amenities coming, but they also intend to engage area stakeholders to identify other neighborhood amenities that folks feel are needed in that area. The project's lender is People's National Bank, and US Bank has committed its tax credit equity for this project, so it's ready to go. LCRA has also approved the project for a 10-year tax abatement. So construction should begin in the first quarter of 2025, with tenants moving in 26, within the first 3 or 4 months of the year. They expect 35 to 50 new jobs in the development. Jason Johnson of Onyx Development, among other companies, is the project consultant, and he's been active all over Midtown, and now he's busy in the Maker District and up and down Delmar. He's with us this morning, and he can give a little bit more background on this particular development and things happening in the area. Jason? Are you there, Jason?
Good morning. Thanks for
Yeah,
having
great.
thanks for having me this morning, guys. Yeah, this is a very exciting project, given the fact that now that we have the Delmar main board kind of pulled together and all the collaborators are coming together, and you guys have been gracious enough in order to give us some funding in order to have a director. I really feel like we're firing on all cylinders here on really pushing the needle forward on Delmar. As Bill said, that we've been actively working in the Delmar Maker District, and probably within the next couple of months, we will have completed 9 new restaurants in that 2-block period alone, with some other future development projects on the horizon. So really banging on all cylinders and excited about that. And as we continue the momentum of growing the Delmar district, there's some exciting things in motion in this Kingsway development area, and potentially some future projects with the big new construction apartment project scheduled to be across the street from this. And so, as a lot of you might know, that I've done a lot of work in the Midtown neighborhood, now finishing 70 some buildings. Fringe development is really a thing, and this project, I think, is going to be another catalytic project in order to continue to push the momentum of what's happening there. I'm super excited that we've got a woman-owned business that's moving into this building. She's bringing in one of her companies, like Bill said, from the county. We're not losing her to Clayton, like a lot of things are happening, as you know. And then she's really been innovative from the perspective of, she sees a real need for a lot of these attorneys that have been working from home, but really need some collaboration. And once we get some of those satellite offices into this project in the neighborhood, it'll be another resource for the neighbors in order to have some opportunity for some legal work they wouldn't otherwise potentially know about. So it's also really exciting for this particular project. One of the things that this neighborhood section really needs is some additional foot traffic and amenities from a retail restaurant perspective. And given the fact that this has got 5 retail bays along the walking corridor right along Delmar off the sidewalk, it's exciting to really finally bring that portion of what's missing into the neighborhood, with the back part of the first floor going creative office, and this particularly for a gym user. So this is really a success story. Like I said, Bill said, historic candy manufacturing companies that we're going to be able to bring back before it turns into rubble. And we're really looking excited to kind of dig our teeth in and get going on this, because I think it's going to be a really a fantastic catalytic project in order to really make this project or this particular block or area move into next stages.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Any comments or questions from the board?
Mr. Johnson, this is Sean Spencer. I'm so glad, Bill, you brought Jason here today, because that was my first question. If this particular owner had a experienced contractor and somebody kind of helping them along, and just wondered, is one of your subsidiaries the general contractor for the project, or you'll just be managing or helping her manage through the construction? And the second question is, are you using historic preservation tax credits on this project? And is the total project cost 5 million, or is it larger?
Yeah, it's good questions, Sean. Good to see you this morning. It's actually gone up to almost $7.2 million when it's all said and done to get the project completed. We were successfully able, working with Karen Baxter, to get the building individually nominated. We've got our Part 1 approved, and we are hoping any day we'll get the green light with our Part 2 in order to lock and load our state and federal historic tax credits. And so that's in motion. And the general contractor we're going to be using on the project is Bill Elliott with Kenrick Design and Construction. He's done several projects for us in the Midtown neighborhood. One that's this building is ironically very similar to my office building, the Martin building along Locust. And so he was the general contractor for that. And so we're, as we're always looking at how to value engineer and these projects within a budget that works, we're comfortable with Bill from the perspective that he did a spray some of the project for us already. So that definitely adds another layer of comfortability on making sure we're not going to go crazy with overruns and things like that on a project like this.
Thank you. I guess one last question would be, any news on the streetscape improvements along that stretch of Del Mar? I don't know if maybe somebody else knows the answer to that, but very excited to see some movement over in that section of Del Mar.
Yeah, we're trying to get some collaboration between our board members on Del Mar, Maine, and Kevin Bryant, but as of right now, it's a little bit of crickets, and so we're still pounding the pavement. They're trying to figure out what's going on and how we can collaborate from that perspective. But I will tell you on another side note is we did a presentation with the neighborhood organization last Saturday morning, and they're very excited about the project and wanting to collaborate with us. And we're doing a little meet and greet again in a few weeks to see if they can come up with anybody in the neighborhood that would like to potentially entertain opening a small business or expanding one of their small businesses into one of our retail bays. And so I think that collaboration with the neighborhood is very important, and we're excited that's in motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to recognize Alderwoman Clark Hubbard's hand.
Good morning. Thank you. And thank you. Good morning, Board of Directors. I'll see you guys in a second, but I did want to hop on in the interim to thank Mr. Johnson for being here this morning. He kind of answered my question that I was going to have. I did want to capture this because I was not present at the meeting on Saturday, but I did get a lot of calls about it. So can you just elaborate a little more on what your presentation was about, if you asked for any support, or what the collaboration was going to look like in your eyes, what you heard from the community? And then can you say specifically when that next meeting is that you spoke about?
Sure. Yes, we coordinated with Abdul at Park Central and Miss Pam Talley in order to get the meeting set up. And we had presentation boards basically showing the different floor plans for the building. We gave a little bit of the history of the project. Sarah Stock, the owner of the project, was there to answer questions. And we just generally reviewed the project kind of like we did today, but we had materials in order to actually physically show them, floor plans and things. And then, like I said, one of the things that we reached out to them about is specifically looking at the fact that we're programming the first floor, and that we want to be good neighbors, and we want to potentially help incubate any businesses or residents or business owners in the neighborhood that might need to expand or are looking for space in order to participate in the project. And so we have a dialogue going on with Ms. Talley on when we potentially will be looking at doing that next round of engagement with them, but we haven't landed a date yet.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say something about a future networking where you're going to listen to residents about what they may vision.
Yeah,
but you're saying there's no date yet.
Yeah, we got that feedback and then and we were basically saying we want them to digest and be thinking about some potential opportunities. And then we're going to work with Ms. Kelly in order to get another date on the books in order to do a collaborative networking event to see if anybody has anything or ideas for us to continue to engage that collaborative nature of the first floor.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much, Jason. Again, and I apologize for not being able to return your phone call that you made yesterday to me. I
No
was running
problem.
and
Well,
some
we
things came
appreciate
up,
your
but
support.
yeah, it's important for me to air and uplift those voices over there with Miss Pam Talley and the president, Miss Sheila Davis. That organization is called the Fountain Park Lewis Place Association. Those neighborhoods are amazing. I brag on them. They're a new area for me in the new 10th ward, and I'm very proud of the relationship that I'm building with them. But that relationship comes with full communication and transparency. And so I thank you, right, for showing up beforehand and for setting the tone to be able to build that relationship. And I want to make sure that I continue to be an anchor to help them make sure that their voices are heard and at the table, because it's important always, I say it, for things to happen with our constituents instead of to our constituents. So again, thank you. I have one last question. Were the ladies that are going to be the property owners, the law firm, I think you mentioned, were they present at the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, not for now. And I will follow up with you as well, Mr. Johnson. And I
Great.
apologize.
No problem at all. Looking forward to it.
Hearing no other questions, I would like to entertain a motion for previous role.
So moved.
Second.
Any objections to previous role?
We need a motion to approve the resolution.
I'm sorry, a motion to, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 975 per previous role.
So moved.
So
request
move,
granted.
Clark.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any objections? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 975 per previous role. Just trying to get a little bit more efficient, James. I appreciate you. Next item on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 976, authorizing allocation of up to $10 million of new market tax credits for a revolving loan fund. We have the Bill Seddon show today, so I'll pass it back over to you, Bill.
Thanks, Neil. On this one, we're seeking authorization to create a small business lending fund of up to $10 million supported by new market tax credits. To date, we've done 6 loan funds over the 20 years of the program. 5 of them have been done with Advantage Capital, and those have been mainly focused on operating businesses, which is great to get small amounts of capital into the business's hands. We've done 1 fund with IFF, which is for not-for-profits, and that's been basically focused on real estate operations for the not-for-profits. So this would be our 7th loan fund, and it's required by the CDFI fund because we stated in our application that we wanted to do a fund. So this one is 10 million, and to date, we've done 51.5 million in loan funds. We've closed 40 loans out of those funds. And a lot of that is revolving money that's come back with repayments, and we've been able to re-lend that money. And so the total amount that we've actually loaned from that 51.5 is like $75 million. Actually, it exceeds that. So that's the great catalytic impact of the loan funds. And, you know, for a business that comes in like the last couple that need 5 million in allocation, well, there's professional fees, and that adds up. But when you do a loan fund, you can loan money to a borrower for $10,000 to $15,000 as opposed to hundreds of thousands that it might cost normally. But more borrowers for us means more impacts, which strengthens our application. It makes us a little bit more appealing for future rounds of allocation. So we're always thinking about how do we win the next round, as Neil knows, right? So basically, this has been a central part of our portfolio for years. I guess the last 10 years, we've really tried to push smart deals and get money into the right hands, particularly manufacturers. But we've done some not-for-profits, and that seems to be really catalytic as well as far as helping them expand service areas and the number of people that they can serve. But some of the more recent loans we have made is EverTrack, Intramotive, Penn Services, and Triad Manufacturing. And I believe all four of those are North Side operating businesses. So that's not great that we've been able to sort of break into that market. We're working with Midwest Bank Center for the first time on this fund, and Senior Vice President Wes Burns, who's got an extensive new markets background, is here to give the bank's perspective and answer some questions as far as how they perceive the market and the relationship. And US Bank is our equity investor for the third straight project. So they're our typical equity investor. But Wes, are you here?
I am here. Good morning, Bill. Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Richardson. Good morning to the board, the committee members, and any other notable attendees this morning. Bill summarized it well. Midwest Bank Center is excited about this opportunity. We have experience in new markets tax credits. We're actually looking at a couple of traditional new markets deals right now, having closed a new markets transaction last year. So the experience pairs well with the opportunity for expanded impact with the partnership through SLDC. We're committed to the city. We were founded in St. Louis in 1906 and are now still family owned on our 6th generation of ownership. And I'm proud to say many of our branches are in low to moderate income census tracts. As Bill and I have been talking over the past several months, kind of putting together what this loan fund looks like, we will have a hyper focus on highly distressed census tracts, really as well as any other qualifying new markets opportunity that we may identify for this loan fund. But ultimately, we are excited to partner with the city and SLDC. The city relationship is one that's extremely meaningful and important to us. And we look at this as just the next way to create further impact through that partnership. So thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Wes, for the presentation today. Either Bill or Wes, can you speak to the size of the loans that you will be making available to the small businesses?
Yeah, happy to take that one, Bill. And thank you, Neil, for the question. We're looking at scaling loan size between $500,000 up to around $4 million. That's really the bookends that we think are meaningful. There is still cost to deploying capital through the loan fund. So the $500,000 minimum creates equity into the businesses receiving the funds without incurring too extensive of cost with legal fees and other closing, although de minimis comparatively to the other new markets costs for a traditional financing structure. But that will be what we're looking at as the minimum. And then on the high end, anything that really exceeds $4 million is likely qualified to receive their own individual new markets allocation and could stand alone as a project financing opportunity.
And Neil, as a follow-up, the maximum we're allowed to lend through the fund is $4 million. That's one of the CDFI requirements. So we would be capped at $4 million. It wouldn't prohibit Midwest Bank from doing a bigger loan. Just the new markets piece could only be $4 million. And it's a perfect complement, really, for our traditional lending programs that cap at $300,000. So, to be able to come in and do a $500,000 loan, SLDC typically can't do that unless there's an SBA component involved. So this is really a fantastic way for us to service more businesses and not just be focused on small amounts of lending.
That's great. Any other questions from the board here?
Just one comment. In our small business ecosystem and with a lot of not-for-profits in St. Louis City, one of the questions that we get asked a lot is, we hear there's a lot of loan funds available, but different departments and different organizations are managing those funds. Bill, have you thought about, is there like one portal, or maybe there's one existing where all these opportunities are in one place so people don't have to apply to 5, 10, 15 different places in order to get the same amount of money or the same approval? Because I think we're wasting a little bit of time going through reviewing and approving applications and then finding out that somebody already has a loan from another place. I'm really glad to hear that, that minimum at 500,000, that's going to probably separate, a lot of the small businesses from this particular opportunity, but it is something I think SLDC and the city should be thinking about.
Well, to answer your question, I don't believe there's one portal, but for the city, I mean, we have a lot of sort of active practitioners. I mean, the city has several buckets of funding, and New Markets now adds another bucket, obviously. But, St. Louis County has their own, options. But I think, we've got several folks here that can handle sort of any of those buckets. But I don't believe that there's one particular portal, but as long as we can get them into our, into our hands, we can direct them to the best source of money. But, that's the difficulty. And I think you make a good point, Sean.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point as well. And I think we've also been working closely with the Small Business Empowerment Center and Kevin Wilson and the work that they're doing also through our Scale Up program with the St. Louis Community Credit Union. But I agree, Director Spencer, we can do a better job of maybe aggregating that information in one place for the individuals that we serve. I will say the Northside Economic Empowerment Center has played a huge role in engaging those businesses, bringing them on board. Stacy and her team actually sits down with the business, understands what are their challenges, and because of our banking partnerships and financial partnerships, we're able to then aggregate them and direct them to where would be a best fit for them, setting them up for success based on the current business model that's being presented. So I would say between the Northside Economic Empowerment Center, the work that we're doing to continue to build on relationships such as this with Midwest Bank Center, it really allows us the opportunity to leverage the power of partnership, where SLDC is not entering into the space where we have to underwrite all of these loans, but we have partners that we can direct them to that have a strong expertise in underwriting and servicing these loans and provide that support. So, any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 976.
So moved.
Second, Arnold.
Roll call vote, please.
Oh, I thought you did previous roll.
No, we didn't. We did. Go ahead.
Okay.
We didn't request it. Go ahead.
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director McBride,
Aye.
Director Sean Spencer,
Aye.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With all present voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 976. I just want to note before we move to the next resolution here, as you heard, the first two resolutions bringing almost 200 jobs to the city of St. Louis. I think there's been this narrative around SLDC and the city losing jobs. Now we're starting to win these jobs and seeing them come back to the city. So again, beginning to see that narrative shift and having projects along Delmar and our Grand Arts Center and starting to see more of a migration back to the city is positive because it puts more money into the tax roll, helps us continue to improve our tax base. And also, as many of you all know that sit on the board of directors for SLDC, the New Market Tax Credit Program plays a considerable role in our operating revenue and our operating capital to help support our employees and the overall operations, relieving the burden of other dollars that we have to receive or may rely on from public sources. So it really allows us to be more efficient and effective in our operating model here at SLDC. So really thank Bill for that great work. And so as we move to the next exciting announcement that will be presented in resolution number 24 SLDC 977, I'll pass it back over to Bill to discuss about the next round of allocation that we've won. Go ahead, Bill.
Thanks, Neil. I'm not sure how exciting it is. This is kind of an administrative resolution. and non-controversial, really. But we are seeking approval of 3 items. And as Neil said, we just did win a $25 million award in the recently announced round. And that was a smaller amount, but we had a little bit too much allocation on the table already. So, but we'll take it. 25 million never hurts.
I'll say, Bill.
And we're now starting to get some really good deals that we're pushing across the finish line. I think we'll have a few more in December and maybe January. So it'll be a busy fourth quarter this year and first quarter next year. We've got some deadlines coming up in April, so that's kind of precipitated a lot of our activity. So we're seeking authorization for this resolution to accept and execute an allocation agreement with the CDFI fund, which is required before we can actually put Neil's signature on the document. The document has been approved in draft form by both CDFI and our internal team and outside counsel, and we're just really waiting this approval today and Neil's signature. So we'll have an executed allocation agreement probably by tomorrow. So that's good news. The allocation agreement obviously spells out the terms and conditions of how we need to sort of, do our deals and the fact that we sometimes need to do loan funds and how we need to do them. So all those details are embedded in these allocation agreements. They're about 40 pages long, so I won't burden you with those unless anybody has interest. So we're also seeking in this resolution authority to apply for another round. Believe it or not, they just put the new round out on Tuesday, and it's a double round this year, which is due on the 29th of January, and it's a $10 billion round. So we are very, very excited to go after maybe even a bigger chunk of allocation. So the more deals we get closed before then, the better chance we have to win and to win a bigger award. So that's kind of what we're thinking about right now. So we do need approval to apply again. And then the third piece of this resolution would adopt a set of written policies and procedures to govern how we utilize the funds that we make available to local businesses and developers. This has been something we've done for years and years, but this basically memorializes that we're following the terms of our allocation agreements and that we're operating the program in accordance with our applications, which CDFI considers to be the Bible. You have to do what you say in your application, and that we're just following stated policies. So those are the 3 components of this resolution. In the past, we've brought these separately, but it just felt like you had enough business to look at today. We might as well just make it easier. So anybody have questions about what we're trying to pursue here?
Bill, this is Matt McBride. Could you give us an overview about how our allotment compares to other national competitors in this new market tax credit realm?
I don't know if I can give you a fair.
I think in the past in the past presentations, they've talked about the percentage that comes to St. Louis and how it compares to other regions and is that...
I'm probably not the best person to ask because I guess there's a scorecard. I know St. Louis in general is very successful as far as winning each year. I think as a city, which we consider ourselves, we may be the most successful. Again, I don't know that for a fact, but that's what I'm told. There are lists and there's probably hundreds of winners. We've won almost $600 million in 13 different rounds, and I think that's considered to be, pretty much at the top. But St. Louis also gets allocation through Enterprise Bank, US Bank, McCormick Barron wins. Justine Peterson just won their first award, $15 million. So St. Louis has really attracted, in general, just the whole region, a lot of allocation. St. Louis County has the Heartland Fund, and they just won a round. So, there's 5 or 6 or 7 allocatees in this region, which is probably more than most cities have, including New York, I would guess. I mean, maybe Neil has a little bit different perspective coming from US Bank. He probably knows sort of holistically some of those figures, but that's, I just don't really follow it that closely.
Yeah. Well, I do, Bill. So, so SLDC over our 13 rounds, as a municipality, they have different levels in which they make awards. They have local, which is more so of a city or county, a municipality. They have a regional level, which really looks at an MSA area, and then they have national awards. And so we have allocatees such as enterprise and a U.S. bank that's more national. We have some that are more regional, like Advantage Capital in some cases. But then the Heartland CDE for the county, SLDC CDE for the city is really hyper local focused. And the U.S. Treasury, which deploys these funds through the CDFI fund, ultimately likes to see hyper focus, hyper impact into distressed areas. And because St. Louis has historically, the city especially, has over 60% of our qualified census tracts within the city itself, it allows for us to have a higher proportion of our geography that actually qualifies for projects within the New Market Tax Credit Program. So it positions us well to really leverage this tool to create job growth in these historically distressed areas. And so that's why you see projects that we highlighted today with Stock Legal being located on Delmar, being able to create jobs that are now able to help that community grow. Is over time, the plan is to see those HUD qualified census tracts become less distressed and begin to grow. And so we've over that 13 rounds have been successful, and now leveraging the Economic Justice Action Plan, really being focused on how we're creating not just jobs in those areas, but wraparound development and being able to have holistic and collective impact in those areas too. But this is a very, very competitive program. And Bill, I know you said it isn't exciting, but it is an exciting moment when, we're continuing to be supported and shown a vote of confidence by the U.S. Treasury and the CDFI fund that we are diligent stewards of these resources and have been diligent stewards of these resources over the last 15 plus years. And so I think that shows the wherewithal, the expertise, and our ability to manage these funds and continue to drive the impact that aligns with the spirit of that legislation for us to be able to move this work forward. So I would just give that in summary. Mr. McBride, if you have any other questions about it?
No, I think that's the message we need to be getting out is how we compare nationally to other applicants, and that we've been in this for over a decade and are what, $600 million you said, Bill?
Just about, yeah, a little
That's
bit under.
outstanding. That's just outstanding. And I'd love to see that message get out even more.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I would too.
Thank you, Bill. And with that, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 977.
So moved, request previous rule.
We practiced that? Oh, wow, that was scary.
Do the soft shoe?
We're gonna do this later.
Second.
Arnold.
Yeah.
No, we have a motion and a second previous roll. Any objections? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 977. Again, thank you, Bill. We can't say how much we value you and your work. Continue to grow this pot, and again, continue to attract these resources to the city of St. Louis to drive that job growth. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 978, authorizing execution of a funding agreement among SLDC, the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership, and the Greater St. Louis Inc. Foundation to support minority and women-owned business enterprise certification program operations, also known as Certified STL. Pass it over to our Senior Vice President of Economic Empowerment, Ms. Stacy Fowler.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's so good to see everybody in person. Yes. Board of Directors, I am before you seeking your permission to execute a funding agreement among SLDC, SLEDP, and the Greater Inc. Foundation. This is a funding agreement to cover our certified STL program. I did put before you some numbers that was not originally in your packet because we had a PRC meeting last night. So it's hot off the presses with all the numbers that and how the work has been progressing since we brought the certification program in-house as of September the 3rd. And so this funding agreement basically is kind of replacing our MOU that we had with the airport, which that agreement had dollars attached to it also. And it was with us, the airport in St. Louis County. And so now this funding agreement is going to be with SLDC, SLDP, and Greater Inc. And the funding agreement is going to be for a 3-year period. It's going to be $300,000 per year to support the operation, staffing, and everything that we will need for the certified STL team to continue doing certification within the MSA area. And so the numbers that you have before you is just showing you that as of September 3rd, we are continuing to take in new applications, renewals for the current certified MBE WBEs, and expansions for the current certified MBEs and WBEs that we have. Until December 31, the airport is continuing to work on the backlog while we're continuing to work on the new applicants that have come in as of September 3rd. And this is just kind of giving you an overview of what that looks like. And I also showed you where the applicants are coming from. So it's not just the city, it's not just the county. As you can see, it really is the MSA area. Like we said, we're providing those services. And then I just gave you a rundown of how many applicants we're approving during our monthly PRC meetings in terms of what those categories look like. And so with your approval today, you will give us the opportunity to continue doing what we're doing with certified STL and hopefully making our region more competitive and giving our small and minority businesses an opportunity to go after different contracts and build our supplier diversity program that we want to do with the MBs, WBs. I won't, I was gonna say, I'll entertain any questions you have.
We do have Rodney Krim from SLEDP, CEO there. Mr. Krim, do you have any comments?
Yeah, good morning, all. Good to hear about all the wonderful projects that you're working on. And this is another good one as well. So we really appreciate Stacy's leadership on this. She's building a good team that has good skills and a positive, respected reputation in this area. And so we think this is a good thing to kind of help move the region forward. At the end of last month, our board met, discussed this at the committee level, and then discussed this at the board level, and it received approval by the board to participate and provide a contribution, as Stacy just mentioned. So we are fully on board. Obviously, with any new program, you're trying to work out any of the particular items that make it run even smoother. And so Stacy's on top of that, working with the team to make sure we accomplish that. So we have meetings scheduled, and we're going to we're setting up kind of a regular cadence on that. So we are very much supportive of it. And again, this has been approved by the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership Board.
So thank you, Rodney. I think it's important to note that in our previous MOU, the funding came from the county support that tri-party agreement between SLDC, the airport, and also the St. Louis County. So we had that tri-party agreement. Now we're moving in a quick pivot with SLDC, SLEDP stepping in now to really support this effort and their contributions. Again, thank you, Rodney, in support of yourself and the board of SLEDP. And then finally, Greater St. Louis, Inc. I want to note why that's an important partnership to have as part of this agreement. When Stacey and I were contemplating how to support small businesses, we get contacted a lot from not just from small businesses on the construction side,
Correct.
but also professional services, other supportive services that these suppliers and contractors to provide not just to the city, but other anchor institutions across the MSA area. So we have our Anchor Action Network that's made up of some of the top employers and drivers and of suppliers in the region, including our educational and medical institutions that Stacey and I met with, and they see a value in investing into this program because they have diversity goals that they're aiming to reach as well. And so it really led from a conversation between Stacey, myself, Rodney, members of the Anchor Action Network, bringing in Greater St. Louis, Inc. And we said we need to come together to create a system that's efficient, that's effective, that has one database in which not just the city is pulling from, but also those anchor institutions, really being able to grow the opportunities that's available to our small women, minority-owned business enterprises to be able to grow and scale in their respective industries as outlined in the Economic Justice Action Plan. And Stacey and the team also opens up the doors to the Northside Economic Empowerment Center for individuals who are seeking to be certified to get direct and immediate support and assistance. Because it is an online application, we do offer a computer lab for individual businesses to actually complete their application on site. If they ask questions of us, we can help them, direct them to understand what needs to be completed. I want to also make it clear that we do not complete the application for them, but we also want to make sure that if they have questions, we can be immediately responsive in person to ensure that they're getting through the process and there isn't, a delay there. So again, it's being able to be more nimble, effective, and efficient. Again, this is primarily and specifically for the Women and Minority Business Enterprise Certification Program, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise and the Concession Business Enterprise Program is still being held at the airport because that is federally funded. But we're excited to now have partnerships from our economic development agencies from across the region coming together to support this program for the city, the county, and our anchor institutions. So I just wanted to note that this is a big deal. This is really important and special. And it's not just connecting and getting people certified, but as you mentioned, Director Spencer, how do we then get them to capital? How do we get them connected to the contracts and really bring that wraparound services in that ecosystem for these businesses to be successful? And that's what's happening, again, in partnership with the Northside Economic Empowerment Center, the Small Business Empowerment Center, SLEDP, and Greater St. Louis, Inc. Supply STL program that they have. So we're all working together. This is what collaboration looks like and what we can achieve together. So I just wanted to make sure that that was noted, that we have great partnerships that's making this possible. Stacey, one quick question, and then I'll pass it over to Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Can you speak to the number of employees and the system that you will be operating out of to manage this program, leveraging these resources?
Yes, we currently have 3 staff that are hired now. We have interviewed quite a few people. I'm getting ready to pass off the top 3 for the directorship to Mr. Richardson and his panel to make final decisions. And we will be finishing up with a certification assistant and an admin person. So it will be a 6-person team that will be working in the certified space. But because we're in the Northside Economic Empowerment Center, there's additional staff that is there that also provides support to that team if they're out on site visits or doing whatever they're doing in the community. So our constituents will be have someone that they can talk to every day, any day, if they walk into the center, no matter what's going on at the center that day.
Great, thank you. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. Yep.
I just wanted to echo the uplifting of the work that you all are doing over at the Northside Empowerment Economic Center.
Thank you.
I know that there are tons of people, I know some personally, that are smiling here and smiling down on the work that SLDC that you all are doing here. And these are fights that people had standing on corners yelling and screaming for. And now you all have not only answered their call, but you have created an intentional space to have solutions and resources, tangible things that people can have to work on these disparities. So speaking to that, I know we got out the disparity study and there's work being done now around legislation and seeing how we meet those goals better and better practices. And I know that we mentioned about the transition will be finally taking place, I think December 31st.
Yes.
And the backlog that's out there now. Can you just speak to, and this is an offer of support, right? Continue support on however we can make that transition as seamless as possible. I'm grateful for this opportunity here, but is there anything more that we can do for you? Is the transition going well so far? And
Transition is going well. We have gotten all of the data into our B2G Now system, so we can see all of the applicants that are there, even the backlog applicants, so that we are staying up on how we're going to make this transition after December the 31st and what that load is going to look like. And in all honesty, for the airport, they've been working very diligently, bringing those backlogged firms to the PRC meeting so that we can begin to move some of those people. We probably won't get everybody done by December, but we're bracing and ready for that because we see what's coming and we're not going to wait until the very end and say, now here, you're stuck with these. We're really trying to be proactive, and we're putting some things in place right now. After this meeting that we had last night, we basically got 30 days to start working with those individual firms, and they know they're in there, and we'll be putting some type of communication together to let them know that they're transitioning from them to us, and we're just going to make sure that they know what's going on, because we don't want confusion, and it can happen because everybody's kind of putting their own verbiage on what's happening. So we're going to be communicating directly with those individuals because now we know who they are, whereas before we didn't know. So
thank you.
yes.
That's why I actually, you just answered why I wanted to ask that question and why I wanted to ask it publicly, because the verbiage and the narratives are important.
Yes.
And the confusion that's created a lot of times, and new, as Mr. Krim mentioned, in new programming you have to work out the kinks.
Yes.
But I wanted to make sure and uplift that from what I see, that this is the work is being done, and I want to continue to offer my support any way I can in the transition. Everybody knows this is a passionate space for me. And
Okay.
I know that, again, this work has never been done in the city.
Yeah.
Right. And so I appreciate you all, and I appreciate your persistence and tenacity and keeping to moving forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. And Stacy, I know also, given, there was a pretty significant backlog before, and based off of your experience with the program, you've thought through not just how we make sure that we are diligent about who we review, but also ensuring that we create some efficiencies.
Yes.
Can you speak about the streamline process for some of the businesses? Yeah.
So some of the problems that we were having with companies, even in the backlog, we wrote an expedited process in our new rules. So if you're a solopreneur, you're not a trust, you're not a partnership, why can't you move to the head of the line if you meet these quick eligibility requirements? We put that in place because we had those kind of individuals in between the more complicated cases, whereas we could have been moving them and the complicated cases at the same time. So that's one of the efficiencies that we put in place to help move. Most of those are even our smaller businesses that are just getting started, or maybe they've started and they're just a solopreneur and there's nothing else but them, right? So that's one of the efficiencies. With the team, we're looking every day at what comes in because it's an online application. So you can make an application at midnight. So we're constantly reviewing how many applications are coming in, what does the flow look like, so that we can stay on top, so that we don't find ourselves in a backlog situation. But last month, you approved a short list for me, which has consultants on it. So if we find ourselves in a pickle, in trouble, believe me, they're at the top of my list, because come January 1, I don't know what's gonna totally happen. It's only about maybe 50 companies that's kind of still there, but we still have another meeting to go to. So we're gonna see, we have the ability to do more than one meeting if we have to get the process done, even though we meet monthly. But we're looking at all our options to see how we move those extra companies that will be coming in.
Awesome. And to date, we have 188 businesses over the last 3 months.
Yes.
Yes, that's great.
And that's in various stages. So if I could just say, if you notice, the new applicants are the smallest group that we have other than the expansions. The renewals are our current individuals who are already MBEs, WBEs, that all we're asking for them to do is submit 2 documents, their taxes and a no change affidavit. But the problem is some of my renewals become new because someone might have passed, someone might have, want to give the business to a family member. So everything changes, no longer a no change, a renewal. You want to renew, but now it's really a new applicant. So even though you see it say renewal, we don't know if it's really going to be a renewal until we look at it. So it changes. So yeah, that's what we got.
Well, again, Stacey, I think we all want to just thank you for your leadership and helping making this happen, this transition take place. I know it wasn't easy and you did it quickly, but I think 2 months was able to transition it between June and September 3rd. So I just want to commend you and your team, and we look forward to hearing more about the success. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question. and
Yes.
a comment. My first comment is if we're going to win as a region, we're going to win together. So I give a lot of credit to Mr. Krim and Director Richardson for their efforts to bring the city and the county together. I think this is an excellent partnership, and that takes people wanting to say yes. So my certify STL question is, when you're certifying, this might be a 101, but I need to get educated myself.
No problem.
If somebody applies and they are doing work in the city and the county, is your review for both the city and the county, or is it just for one or the other?
No. Once you're certified and you sit on our online directory, you can work anywhere within the MSA area as long as they take our certification.
It's another win. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, one more question.
Go ahead.
Oh. mm.
I appreciate it. So just how many companies are still in the backlog? I know we've got the 188 new applicants, but is it the 50 that I heard you say that were still processing?
That's what's left after last night's meeting
After last
that
night.
they have on their caseload that we're trying to look at. And if we can't get them all approved by the end of December, then they would just basically come to us come January 1.
Gotcha. I mean, you're just motoring right through them. I understood the backlog to be much, much larger than that. So that's outstanding work. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I just didn't want to miss the opportunity for anyone who might be listening that might want to engage in the certified STL programming. If you could offer your contact information.
Sure. We are located at 4248 Cottage in the annex next to Sumner High School. Our telephone number is 314-617-0360. Our email is certification@stlouis-mo.gov. And every Tuesday and Thursday at 1:00, no appointment is needed. We do a session called Digging Through the Weeds of Certification. You can come and ask your questions. You can bring documents if you're not sure about what you need to do, and we walk you through the process.
We have a website as well.
Our website is developstlouis.org/certify STL.
Go. All right, all bases are covered. Thank you. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion for previous roll to approve Resolution 24 SLDC 978.
Second, Arnold.
Any objections, abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes per previous roll to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 978. Thank you again, Stacey,
you,
for
Board
your
of
leadership
Directors.
and your team as well. The next resolution is resolution number 24 SLDC 979, authorizing a first amendment to the reimbursement agreement between SLDC and Greater St. Louis Inc. Foundation related to the security and redevelopment of the Railway Exchange building. I pass it over to Mr. Robor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Resolution 24 SLDC 979 authorizes an amendment to an agreement between SLDC and Greater St. Louis Inc. Foundation related to the security and development of the Railway Exchange building. Last October, this board approved and authorized up to $100,000 to be reimbursed to Greater St. Louis, who went out and procured a security firm to help reduce the number of break-ins and activities that were occurring at the Railway Exchange building. That of that $100,000, approximately $52,000 was expended at that time. In the interim, the building division became active. They actually entered into a contract with Dogs, which is a company that provided a metal panel board up of the building. After some initial struggles with that program, it has actually worked very well. However, individuals were breaking into the building through other means on upper levels, and we boarded up the first level. The building division also entered into an agreement with Civil Investigations to do a 24-hour two-person manned security. That has been tremendously successful. The last several weeks, they've been sharing the shift reports from that firm. And it's not surprising, but maybe to some people that almost every single shift, there are multiple encounters with individuals who are looking either just curious, maybe looking to gain entry into the building or into the parking garage across the street. The security firm, according to all of the reports, they approach those individuals, they ask them to move on, and have had almost no incidents over the past year. The building division is now looking for our assistance to help pay for this. This was an unanticipated cost for them. Upcoming, in fact, last week, the 1-year anniversary of the Dogs contract is up. It's a rental program. The first year was paid by the building division. We had a kind of a verbal commitment with Frank Oswald, the previous building commissioner, that Greater St. Louis and this body would help pay for the renewal of that board up program. So that bill is now due. In addition, the monthly costs are averaging about $60,000 for this security service, which again has been very successful, and they would like to have our assistance with that. So this resolution authorizes up to an additional $60,000 to the unspent $47,000 remaining from last year to provide not only the renewal of the board up contract, but the renewal of the continuing employment of the security firm to get us hopefully through the end of January, at least 2025. Excuse me. As you all know, we are currently seeking to acquire ownership of both the Railway Exchange building and the parking garage through eminent domain. We had a first hearing last Wednesday, which we think went very well. We expect to know within 45 days whether or not that the judge will honor and recognize that LCRA has the authority and that it's in the best interest of the community for LCRA to acquire ownership. Once that happens and LCRA does become the owner of the property, we can then use our land assemblage and pre-development funds that have been authorized from the ARPA allocation of the city to pay for these ongoing expenses for security. But at this time, only the building division can do this through their powers of police protection for the general public. So I'm asking for your approval to provide this additional amount, which will be treated as a reimbursement through Greater St. Louis, and between the two of us, we will pay for these ongoing security measures. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Well, I wanted to thank the building division and Mr. Oswald and Mr. Ware for their funds and getting the security going. I can affirm firsthand that the security is in fact in place. As I walk to my office 1 block away and see the individuals, and though I've not seen any encounters like you reported, Rob, yeah, they are there, they're attentive, they're paying attention, they're in uniform, and it's a good add to that area of downtown in general. It's unfortunate we have to expend that amount of money, but we have to secure our properties. It also heightens the issue of all property owners downtown and the expenses they have to put forth just to maintain their own properties, but we have to do that ourselves. I think it's good. I think it's the right thing to do as we are preparing for eminent domain, and we want to be kept abreast of those hearings as well as they proceed.
And I will add that going forward, we will be looking at enhancing video surveillance technologies and analytics to help with that. And we may be adjusting what that man security looks like. I will say they also take pictures of most of these encounters. And the vast majority of the people that are looking to potentially gain entry are teenagers, young people late at night. Looks like they have nothing better to do. No idea whether they have any evil intentions or it's just, something to do. Here's an opportunity. Here's a vacant building. Let's go see what's going on. And the most challenging part of the security is the parking garage. As you know, it's an L-shaped garage. Many points of entry is not as well secured as the building. So once we do acquire that, working with Greater St. Louis, that parking garage will be demolished as soon as is physically possible. So that will also help reduce the ongoing security costs and potential for vandalism and other break-ins.
All right, any other questions?
Just one quick question. Are the guards, are they armed or unarmed?
I believe they are armed, yes.
Looking at the cost that matches up with some other projects, I just want to make sure the board knows. Matt confirms they're on site. I'll confirm that the cost match.
And I'll have no comment on whether any pictures.
I think I saw a couple.
Commissioner McBride has not been seen in any of the photos yet.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 979 per previous row.
So move, Gilbert.
Second, McBride.
The motion and the second to approve resolution number 24. Any objections, abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 979.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob, and all your collaboration. Again, I want to thank Greater St. Louis, Inc. for their willingness to partner with us on this. And again, the Department of Public Safety has done a great job of helping us move this site forward and securing this site as we are moving forward with the condemnation process that we're hoping to wrap up soon. So the next item on the agenda is resolution number 24 SLDC 980, authorizing the development and execution of a subrecipient agreement with the Community Development Administration to fund programmatic support for the Stable Communities STL program. With that, I'll pass it over to our Senior Vice President of Strategic Growth, Mr. Lance Knuckles.
Good morning, directors. As always, an honor and a privilege to be in front of you to communicate the work and progress of St. Louis Development Corporation. I am here today to present to you on behalf of a strategic partnership of city departments, inclusive of the Building Division, our Community Development Administration, the Mayor's Office, this office at SLDC, PDA, and the City Councilor's Office, as this group of individuals and departments work strategically together to execute the Stable Communities Program. I am here today seeking your support and authorization to develop and execute of a subrecipient agreement with the Community Development Administration to fund programmatic support for the Stable Communities Program. Before I move into details of the resolution itself, the Stable Communities Program represents a $13 million commitment of American Rescue Plan funds to stabilize privately owned vacant and condemned buildings, an authority that the Building Division has had almost the entire time, but did not have the funds to be able to execute that task. The first building was completed in June of 2023, and since then, another 51 buildings have been completed and 5 are currently under construction. In addition, during that time, more than 20 owners, after receiving notices of intent to stabilize, were prompted to take action themselves and not require this program to do so on their behalf. The Stable Communities Program is impacting 7 wards, 20 neighborhoods, and 10 historic districts and or structures. As we've mentioned with the Certify STL, all programs require some due diligence in navigating staffing and elevating those programs to be stood up. This program is not any different than any other program based upon that type of work. The program has had a singular staff person, and so this resolution is seeking to add an additional staff person to this process to support the implementation of this program, to communicate effectively to business owners or residents or owners, to be able to then document and communicate to those folks and to the interagency offices that are a part of this program in a timely and professional manner. This resolution will also support some of the staff time for the vacancy strategist who is a current employee of SLDC, who has been acting as a facilitator and coordinator of these agencies and has been done a phenomenal job. So I have to publicly say kudos to Ms. Laura Ginn for always being a consummate professional and helping to move these city departments in collaboration to execute this program flawlessly. And so with that, I'll summarize that the programmatic support of this resolution is to ask for $331,787. It's a pocket change. I'm kidding. To be able to support the staffing of this program. As you all will see in the resolution, there was a previous resolution in the value of $400,000 that this body approved to support that first position. This resolution with CDA would then extend to support that second staff person and all the operational support that's required to execute the program, as well as a small portion of our vacancy strategist who is currently employed with SLDC. And so I'd like to just say the total roughly administration for this program is under $1 million, which is under 8% of the entire $13 million. So we feel we're effectively moving this program forward with maximizing the staff capacity and resources to do so. So with that, again, I seek your support to authorize this resolution to move forward, and I will yield the floor to answer any questions from this body.
Just want to make a couple of things clear. Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Knuckles. That SLDC, we're simply providing administrative support for the program. That $13 million that is actually going to stabilize these buildings is operating not from SLDC, but from the building division. They're working with contractors to stabilize these assets. SLDC is just, again, pitching in, providing some administrative support as they move forward with the process. The city councilor is obviously involved as we're dealing with private building stabilization, as well as, again, the building division addressing code violations and condemned privately owned buildings. I think one of the things that we've noted through the vacancy work is that, yes, LRA has now less than 10,000 parcels, but we also have 20,000+ privately owned vacant structures and buildings and lots across the city. And so not just addressing our LRA properties, which we're continuing to do through our demolition program, our beautification programs, but also working in conjunction with the city to ensure that we are addressing some of those vacant nuisance properties that are privately owned as well, and making sure those things are addressed. I would like to pass it over to Laura very briefly to talk about the administrative role and function that she plays, because I think it's very important for the public to understand the role that SLDC plays. As, again, we're not managing and stewards of that $13 million. We're simply providing some administrative support. Laura?
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, board. Yeah, so SLDC, a couple ways. One is my role in facilitating this cross-department committee that was established by the mayor in Executive Order 76 that set up this program and the funding for it. And it specifically says that we need the planning department, cultural resources, building division, CDA, everyone at the table helping to steer this work and ensure that it is in strategic alignment with all of the other investments we're making, particularly in high vacancy blocks. So that committee meets monthly to check in on the program. We also have regular standing team meetings with building inspectors, the permitting office, others kind of keep. So my role is helping keep those different departments, agencies, partners, all connected, working together, and helping track the projects as we move forward. One of the things that has been a struggle is that we have been tracking this program outside of the standard software systems that we're using for other things. And so there was a interagency agreement approved by the Board of E&A recently that's going to allocate funds to build out this program inside STL city permits so we can track it alongside all other code violations, permits, the contracting process. So it's properly integrated with other systems so that all inspectors, owners, departments can see where we're at, what's happening, what next steps are. It's also going to provide an appeal process. So owners would be able to file and track their appeals online. And that's something the city's never had before. So helping to get those, subcontracts and process improvements stood up and make sure this program is robust and effective.
Thank you, Laura, for that thorough overview of all of the work that you do. And again, I think it just speaks to the importance of us having the resources to stay strategically aligned, but also to ensure that we can be transparent with the public around what's being addressed at these private buildings that are being stabilized. And then also tracking that appeal process is important to, again, to make sure that we are being diligent and transparent around our communication with these landlords and on these unoccupied structures too. So thank you again, Laura. Any other questions or comments from the board here?
I have a question and a comment. I guess the first comment is, thinking back, and my work has primarily been with vacant properties over the last 15 years. And I can tell you in the last 5 years, we've probably done more work to address vacancy than the previous 50 years. So I just commend everybody that's working on this. A couple of things that come to mind. We passed Prop V. We're doing the property stabilization program. The vacancy collaborative started last night. We had over 100 people at the St. Louis Artworks. CDA presented, talked about, how we're working in the neighborhoods and collecting feedback, heightened code enforcement, abandonment lawsuits. We are really getting on top of this problem. It's not going to happen overnight, but I know we're making a lot of progress. So I thank everybody for their work. One question for Ms. Ginn is the Ptolemy software. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how that may impact or help us with some of the work we're doing with vacant properties and locating some of those owners.
Mm-hmm. Sure. It's one of the many software programs we're using, but I'm a big fan of Ptolemy. It's something that the city and SLDC just kind of brought into our system within the last couple of years. They're in over 100 cities across the country, and they're really good at sitting on top of all of our disparate software systems and allowing us to view them all in one place. For this program, what that's allowed us to do is build out something called a building intervention suitability analysis. It's a prioritization model, and it's tied directly to that executive order I mentioned that established this program, where the mayor's office said, we want to prioritize properties that have out-of-state problem owners that are sitting on multiple buildings and haven't done anything for a while. Ptolemy allows us to actually count how many other vacant buildings does this owner have? Is it a functioning or defunct LLC? So there's a score around, absentee ownership, problem property. Another priority was to prioritize public health and safety. So it allows us to prioritize properties, for example, where the privately owned condemned building shares a wall with an occupied home, or maybe with an LRA building that's been stabilized. And so we want to make sure we're concentrating that investment and protecting the neighboring property, or even, near schools, near parks, a long history of maybe calls for service for violent crimes. And the third score is called an economic investment potential score. And that's where we're looking at, if we put some investment into this property to stabilize it, get it closer to rehab, what's the likelihood that the private market can push it all the way to reoccupancy? So is it in a historic district? Is it eligible for those tax credits or other incentives? Are there building permits being pulled nearby? Are properties being sold? Are there other signs of investment? And so that's helping us to really prioritize, of the 6,000 privately owned buildings across the city, 4,000 of which are condemned. Where do we start and where do we have the most impact with really stepping in, stabilizing these properties and making sure they're not demolishing themselves over time?
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Go ahead. Yeah,
I
please.
just want to echo the congratulations and the gratefulness for you, Miss Ginn, for the work you do. If people don't know her, she's like knee-high to a grasshopper. What I'm so impressed by her when I first met her was running up and down alleys looking at vacant buildings and me begging her to tell me how I can get this torn down in the community is that she is uniquely gifted. She has a patience. She's like a building whisperer at this point. And so again, this has been said so many times, these are things that have never been done before in the city. And as an older person, just being here for 6 years, the calls that I get about vacant buildings, the response that I have gotten from you all and Laura again and the teams and these new processes have been the most impactful and most effective. So I thank you as an older person for the work that you all are doing in this program and giving us this essential tool to be able to combat these decades of decay that our constituents have had to face. Thank you so much.
Thank you. With that, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 980 per previous row.
So move Gilbert.
Second, Clark Hubbard.
With a motion and a second, are there any objections? Abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SODC 980. And so as we move to our last resolution today, which is resolution number 24 SODC 981, I'll pass it over to our Executive Vice President, our Chief Operating Officer, Ms. Stephanie Greasy, to kick off the presentation.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be with you this morning. I'm here on Resolution 981, authorizing the execution of a 6-month contract with Armanino Advisory, LLC, for an internal review of the North St. Louis Grant Program in an amount not to exceed $50,000. Without belaboring the point, I know that everyone is familiar with the history of the grant program. June, we launched our initial feedback on the applications. We received a lot of feedback from the community over the course of the summer. In October, we paused the program and did an in-depth review of our processes and documentation, looked at the applications, pressure tested those applications in that process against Treasury regs, our agreements with the city and CDA. We also received some additional feedback in October, and based on that feedback, decided that we wanted to have an independent review of those same processes and procedures that we have in place. We have a lot of faith in our team and in the diligence that went into that process, and wanted to, again, have a third party come in, look at the information, verify completeness, accuracy of what we had done. Our top priority just remains ensuring that the grant proceeds are funded equitably and distributed throughout the community to people who were most adversely impacted by the COVID pandemic. And so we want to go down this path with Armanino. We are working with Armanino. They're an experienced accounting firm to do that independent review, to assess potential program risks and related controls, and to advise on modifications to be made to the program framework. The work as proposed would take place in 2 phases over up to 6 months. In the first phase, which is currently underway, Armanino is reviewing the application and vetting process and making observations and recommendations based on our control framework. You'll hear a presentation on Armanino's preliminary findings shortly. Depending on those findings in phase 1, SLDC does have the discretion to pursue a phase 2, where Armanino would do a deeper dive into our portfolio, update those preliminary findings as needed. As mentioned previously, phase 1 is currently underway. We have the express understanding with Armanino that costs incurred under that phase 1 cannot exceed $20,000 without further authorization from this board. The total requested amount for both phase 1 and phase 2, again, is up to $50,000 funded from ARPA interest. We are pursuing sole source procurement policy under this because of the urgency and, again, our desire to get these funds back into the community to people who need them most. So again, in conclusion, we're requesting approval of the execution of a 6-month agreement with Armanino Advisory for up to $50,000. And I would like to now invite up Keenan McKinney and his team at Armanino Advisory to walk us through the status of their phase 1 review.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, board. Does the board have copies, or should the board get copies? Okay. So as those are being passed around, I'll just introduce myself. Keenan McKinney, I'm a director in the advisory services practice of Armanino. Joining me today, we have Ron Steinkamp, who's a partner in our advisory services practice. And we also have Justin Jacobs, who's a supervising senior in our advisory services practice. Justin and myself were the primary point persons in performing this initial phase 1 review. And before I proceed, I would like to acknowledge the support and cooperation from President Neal, Stephanie, and I think Lance here. So, all right. So what I'll do is just kind of walk you through the report at a very high level. Obviously, if there's some detail that you see in the report as I'm walking you through it, feel free to stop me, or I'll take your questions at the end of the presentation there. All right. So if we want to flip over to page 2 of the report, and I'm not going to go through all the background. Obviously, the board is familiar with the background there. I'll just walk through starting with the objectives and the scope of our review here. So at the bottom of page 2, you'll see the section there, objectives and scope. Obviously, as was noted by Stephanie, we're performing this review in phases. So phase 1 focused on the design of the processes and controls related to the North City Grant Program. More specifically, there at the bottom of page 2, you'll see several bulleted items, and those represent the sub-processes within the overall North City Grant Program that we took a look at. So for instance, we took a look at the processes and controls around the submittal and receipt of grant applications, the development and approval of the criteria in determining eligibility, the vetting process, the process for the review, recommendations, and approval of awards, as well as determining the criteria and methodology for the award amounts. And continuing over to page 2, we also took a look at the process of communicating with the applicants, as well as the tools and systems that are in place. Also, you'll note that we took a look at the processes for assessing conflict of interest and also roles and responsibilities of the various parties, such as SLDC staff, board, committees, and other relevant city departments. Midway through the page here, you'll see there are certain items that were excluded from phase 1. So in phase 1, we did not review the operating effectiveness. That will be covered in phase 2, and I'll talk a little bit more about what phase 2 will entail a little bit later on. But just a couple of things we did not take a look at. Obviously, we did not take a look at the process of actually dispersing the funds. We did not look at any controls around bank accounts, access to those accounts, things of that nature there. Obviously, we did not look at any of the processes at this point that SLDC uses to monitor the eligible uses of those funds. And also, we did not look at any specific reporting requirements required under the ARPA Treasury final rule there, all right? So our approach to this was basically interviewing staff, reviewing policies and procedures, reviewing the ordinances, CDA subrecipient agreement, reviewing related program documents, and also talking with the staff and walking through a limited sample of applications so that we can understand how those applications are processed from the receipt to the award process there, all right? I want to skip over page 4 because page 4 talks about phase 2. I'll come back to that momentarily. What I want to do is flip you over to page 5. So the key there under the executive summary, we noted that overall the processes and controls appear to be reasonably designed or are in the process of being enhanced to ensure that SLDC can facilitate a fair and consistent application review, recommendation, and award process there. And so on this page here, what I do, and I'm not going to go through the detail of this, what I do is outline each of those sub-processes that were listed on the previous page. And under each of those processes, I identify the controls that we've identified and confirmed in place based on our procedures, such as our interviews, reviewing documents, and things of that nature there. So I'll go through a few examples of these so that you kind of get a flavor of some of the items that we identify related to each. So for instance, as it relates to item 2, the development and approval of eligibility of criteria, obviously, I believe everyone knows that CDA entered into a subrecipient agreement with SLDC, which outlined the parameters for the eligibility criteria. But we also noted that SLDC leadership worked very closely with CDA in the development of specific criteria, eligibility requirements, and things of that nature as it relates to the grant awards there. All right. I'm going to also jump over just slightly to page 6 here. And once again, I'm hitting this at a high level. So if there's any areas you want me to backtrack to, let me know. So item 6 there talks about business vetting process, such as looking at the ownership, location of businesses, taxes, things of that nature there. So what we've identified is that SLDC does have a very robust process in place for the vetting of the applicants there. So we verified that, there are processes for doing the CBI check, verifying licenses, utilizing GIS systems to verify the locations of the businesses or the proposed projects to make sure that they're within the allowed geographical area there. One item I think I want to bring to your attention under item 6A, that first bullet there talks about the viability assessments that were being performed by third-party groups. SLDC has acknowledged that there have been some concerns with the quality of the work that were performed by some of those prior contractors. And as a result, SLDC, which we've confirmed through our interviews and discussions, are in the process of reconsidering, and I would say rescoring and reevaluating those viability assessments there. Later on, you'll see we will have 1 or 2 additional comments regarding the viability assessments and moving forward in the evaluation of those items there. Item 7 talks about the review, recommendations, and approvals of those awards. So depending on the type of grant, the amount of the award, SLDC has put into place a process to review, provide recommendations, and approve those awards. More specifically, an enhancement that SLDC is proposing to their review process is to create an advisory committee board to focus and review on certain types of grants. I believe most of those grants will be on a certain dollar threshold. A key part to that advisory committee is not only will it involve several members of the SLDC staff and leadership, it would also allow the mayor, the comptroller, and the president of the Board of Aldermen to appoint a member to that board. So you have some more visibility by St. Louis governmental leadership into those substantial awards that are going out to the community there. All right. A couple other things that were implemented are being implemented as part of the review and recommendation process under item 7. Item 7C and item D talks about an enhanced review documentation that can be provided to the various committees as well as the board to assist them in getting a summarized review of the information that was considered in the recommendation process and assist those individuals in making an appropriate decision of the award there. All right. So I'm going to skip over once again to page 7 here. Item 10 on page 7 talks about identifying and assessing potential conflicts of interest. So we have verified that the SLDC obtains conflict of interest disclosure forms from not only its staff that's involved in the process, but is also obtaining those from its various committees and its board members. Additionally, we verified that all of the third-party contractor agreements has appropriate conflict of interest clauses in those, and where necessary, if additional communication is required from those third parties are required to provide that communication on any potential conflicts of interest there. All right. So that just kind of gives you a brief overview of the various sub-processes and the controls that we've reviewed and discussed with SLDC. Now I'll move over to page 8. In the middle of page 8, you'll see it says summary of observations and recommendations. So these are the executive summary of the preliminary observations and recommendations that we have provided and discussed with SLDC up to this point here. And just as a bit of information, there is a detailed section on the subsequent pages that goes into a little bit more detail there. But item 1 on the conflict of interest and disclosure forms, obviously, as we mentioned with the advisory committee being recommended by SLDC, it will be important that for those members that are appointed by the mayor, the comptroller, and the president of board of aldermen, that those members also submit or complete and submit a conflict of interest statement form there. An additional part here that we note as relates to conflict of interest is that in the original ordinance, as well as in the original subrecipient agreement and a subsequent amendment, it noted that the Board of Aldermen in the awards that will be impacted, could provide a letter of support or opposition. I believe that requirement has since been removed. However, up to the point where that was allowed, there could have been the possibility that members of the Board of Aldermen could have submitted a letter of support or opposition for particular projects within their ward. In those instances, if a letter of support has been submitted, or if this requirement is reinstated, we are recommending that SLDC require any Board of Aldermen that submits a letter of support also submits a conflict of interest disclosure to comply with the rules and regulations that all other participants and stakeholders in the program must comply with. All right. Item 2 talks about the consideration of the priority of scoring based upon years in business. There has been commentary about utilizing the age or years in business as a scoring mechanism or a means of providing a priority basis for those applicants there. Based on this, as where we are in the process now, our recommendation is that if that is to be considered, it should be discussed with CDA and the City of St. Louis Councilor's Office, as that could impact conditional awards or disbursements that have been previously made. And so we're recommending that that be discussed before that is implemented. Item 3, regarding the viability assessment. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that SLDC is working to review and reconsider the results of the viability assessments. One item in particular that we're recommending that SLDC consider as well is the scoring mechanism in those viability assessments. Per our review, the scoring was not necessarily tied to the final results or conclusion of those viability assessments. And so we're recommending that SLDC make sure that those scoring mechanisms are actually tied to the final results. And then lastly, updates and consistency to the information on the transparency portal. Obviously, the transparency portal is a really good benefit and tool for stakeholders, applicants, and the community to have insight into what's happening into the program. As policies and procedures continue to be updated, it's important that SLDC continue to maintain and update the transparency portal and ensure that the information on the transparency portal is consistent amongst itself, as well as with the messaging that is being communicated out to the public there. All right. So that's a quick overview and brief overview of the report. Is there any questions from the board? All right.
Yes, one of my questions is around the phase 2.
Yes.
And the next
All
set
right.
of things that you plan to take on.
So let's go back to page 4. And so I know you all have the preliminary phase 2 in I believe the meeting agenda packet. This pretty much mirrors that, but however, we have made some minor edits to it based upon what we've learned in phase 1. And so what we propose to do, as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, is that in phase 2, we would take a deeper dive looking at the actual operating effectiveness of the processes and controls as put into practice there. So primarily, a couple of the key things that we would want to do is really dig into the applications that were received and the awards that were either conditionally awarded or actually dispersed, to verify that those applications were reviewed and approved based on the allowed eligibility requirements, that they were reviewed and approved based on the documented scoring methodology, and that that scoring methodology was properly applied to those grants. We'd also make sure that those grants or those applications have gone through the appropriate review and recommendation and approval processes. And we also note here, as you note in my presentation, we bring out some specific approaches that we're proposing to that review. We're separating out how we would approach the competitive grants versus the non-competitive grants. The non-competitive grants, as they're a little bit more, I would say, simpler to evaluate and award, and so that since some of those have already been issued, we would propose starting on those right away for those that have been issued, so we can go in, verify those, determine if there's any issues in the awards process, and quickly bring that to the attention of SLDC so that as they are proceeding with the additional awards, they can begin making corrections to that awarding process. The competitive awards will be a little bit more, I would say, we have to be a little bit more careful on how we step around those. Obviously, with SLDC going back through its review process, going back, revisiting the viability assessments, the scoring and things of that nature, we wouldn't want to get in there and start trying to review those applications at the same time that SLDC is reviewing and reassessing those items there. So in that case, we may have to hold off, maybe some weeks, maybe a couple of months or so, whatever, until SLDC has had the opportunity to go back through and push those grants through to its award status there. Obviously, one risk that we have to be aware of is that if there are some significant deficiencies that we find in the process that could impact the decisions that should have been made on those awards, obviously that will have to be a discussion then that SLDC would have to have with CDA and the city councilor's office as to how those deficiencies should be addressed for those awards that have already been dispersed or conditionally awarded there. So that is the primary piece of phase 2. But the other pieces of phase 2 could potentially include interviews of business owners to get additional perspective on just their perspective on the overall process. What did they think worked well? What are some things that they think did not work well? And we might want to talk with those who were actually awarded grants. Even though they may have been awarded grants, they still might have had some concerns with the overall process. We definitely want to talk with those who may have been denied to get their feedback on it, as well as other considerations in selecting who we would talk with there. And then a couple other things we would do, we would make sure we confirm all of the conflict of interest forms. We have received those, so actually we can do that now, but because of limited time, we have not had the opportunity to truly dive in and reconcile all those conflict of interest statements out. And then some of the other items are more so just basic controls as far as ensuring that there are appropriate security and user access controls surrounding the documentation related to the grants program. So for instance, there is a significant tracking tool that is used by SLDC to track the grants throughout or the applications throughout its life cycle. So obviously we want to make sure that there are appropriate controls and user access controls around that tool so that no one could get in there and do something funny to the scoring to either support or deny someone from receiving an award there. All right. So that's kind of an overview of what would happen in phase 2. And then finally, just to add to phase 2, we would reevaluate any risk or controls that we've identified here. We would update our report and present the results of that report again to SLDC leadership and the board. All right.
Yeah, thank you. That's very thorough update, and I really appreciate it. I just for the public, just for their edification, as you got through phase one to kind of do the first stage of the assessments, can you confirm or deny that the policies around that SLDC move forward with the application and those sort of things match the Treasury guidelines, the ordinance, and the subrecipient agreement?
Yes, yes. So I know Neil is referencing to the Treasury final rule, which outlines the eligible uses, allowable uses, and policies and procedures that must be in place there. So yes, from what we've seen based on the ordinance, the Treasury final rule, as well as the subrecipient agreement, the processes, policies, and procedures as documented are in line with that.
Thank you. So as we talk about next steps and moving the program forward, board, my goal is to establish that we have the right processes in place, and now for us to ensure that we're implementing those processes in alignment with how they have been documented. And I believe we have done that thus far, specifically on the non-competitive programs. We're ready to move forward with continuous of funding of those stabilization, technical assistance, and capacity building as that robust vetting is continuing to happen. I want to note one thing is that the robust vetting process did not stop when the conditional awards were approved at the last board meeting. That was just one of the steps in the process. And as we will continue to do that robust vetting prior to a business being funded, bringing those funding recommendations back to the board as we promised for the competitive programs, taking into consideration the years of business, those conflict of interest, and other assessments that need to be done. I would also like to note that SLDC staff, the mayor's office, the comptroller's office, the presidents of the Board of Aldermen office have all been engaged in this process to hear some of these challenges with putting out this unprecedented program, the first of its kind program to support specifically North St. Louis small businesses and nonprofits to revitalize the commercial corridors. And we also had conversations with the collector of revenue around ensuring that we are following the appropriate procedures around the CBI clearance that we have in place. Those things have been confirmed by the collector of revenue, but also, as you noted in your presentation, there are ways to enhance that. And one of the considerations that we had when we were meeting with the collector of revenue, is the new legislation that was put in place and sponsored at the Board of Aldermen, but the Tax Accountability and Development Act, making sure that we abide by those ordinances to ensure that anyone that's receiving funds are up to date on all of their obligations to the city. And then one of the last things I would like to note is with any federally funded program, there's always opportunities for people to manipulate the system, manipulate the program. Our goal is to take the information in, do the best vetting that we can potentially do, and then award the funds accordingly. If we are to identify or it brought to our attention that the businesses does not align with those obligations, or as we are doing that ongoing compliance to ensure that as these businesses are spending down these funds, they're not reporting appropriately on those eligible uses, we do have the authority in partnership with the city councilor's office to take legal authority and notify those parties and take legal action to claw those funds back, very similar to other federal programs that have been awarded. I would say I know there's been a lot of information and news around the PPP program as an example, where the U.S. Treasury was deploying funds to address immediate need. And there was some misrepresentation in applications by businesses, and the businesses had to be held accountable. Our goal is to ensure that we work with these businesses to help them understand the rules, help them understand the requirements of these funds. But at the end of the day, again, we have to, as we're holding ourselves accountable in this process, we also have to ensure that we have trust and faith in those businesses are representing themselves well. And if not, we have to take the appropriate processes and procedures to address those things through legal recourse. Again, but our process through the technical assistance capacity building, providing support for businesses to complete these applications. Mr. Lance Knuckles completed over 100 101 debriefs with any business that had a question or needed clarity around their scoring. And I think we're ready to now move forward in this process. We've now established that we followed the processes in alignment with Treasury guidelines, the ordinance, as well as CDA subrecipient agreement. Based on public feedback that we've received, we're going to make some adjustments around the evaluation of years in business. And then I am going to request my staff to bring forward at the December board meeting the new funding request for businesses that have been fully vetted. I think some of the concerns previously, again, were that we had one step in the process around conditional awards and putting that out to the public as we were doing the vetting process, trying to be as transparent as possible, but now understanding that we have to be diligent and understanding that that may have led to some confusion for the public around the funding process, that now we're going to make sure that we fully vet those businesses, get CBI clearance before we bring anything back to the board for consideration on those larger grant award amounts in that competitive process. And so you can expect that in December, board, as we're continuing to have not just oversight from the U.S. Treasury, oversight from the members of ENA, but then also CDA, and now our internal partner here, third-party partner, Armanino, will be here all overseeing these programs to ensure that we're doing this in a fair and just manner. So we look forward to bring that back before the board. Any other questions by the board of directors here?
My only question, I had some feedback from, frankly, some applicants who were either turned down or didn't feel like they were given, I guess, some due diligence. And a lot of it was around the communication from staff and, being advised to move from one program to the other, but there was no written follow-up. And then they were turned down because there was additional information required in the other program, which they were not aware of when they were advised to move over. And those are the kinds of things that, certainly they should have looked at the new thing and looked to see if there was anything else, but they were being told by staff, oh, we're just switching you to the other program. They weren't given further guidance on those types of things. So I would hope that that's something that, is being looked at. Is there written communication with regard to things as opposed to just verbal?
Yeah. So one of the things that I will state, and I know, Mr. Knuckles, you've had several conversations with businesses, if you want to make some remarks, is we did have written communication that go out to businesses to keep them informed throughout the process. One of the great things that Candid was able to implement was a constant contact platform. So as we sent out emails to these businesses, we're able to actually track when they received it, did they open it, how many times they opened that email, and then being able to inform that business, this is the written communication that you've received, and providing that track record directly to them around, okay, you received the email on this date, you opened it this date. We can definitely respond to those things and have a clear line of communication and documentation. But Mr. Knuckles, do you want to speak to any of the other areas as it relates to the debriefs that you had with these small businesses?
Chairman, yes. Director Gilbert, I think throughout the course of August, roughly August 5th through October 31st, conducted in excess of 100 one-on-one meetings with those business owners who actually expressed the need to engage and really understand the process. So I would say if there's a business owner specifically, I would extend to make the connection to me directly, and I can definitely conduct that one-on-one with them to provide that clarity and understanding. Within the process of the reconsideration program or process that we're doing now, every single file is being investigated to ensure, to your point, Director, that if anyone had applied for a specific program, that we are able to gather the appropriate information related to that. Not anything new in regards to additional information, but to ensure they have an opportunity to align their documentation with the program in which they're attempting to compete. So I welcome the opportunity for you to make a connection with that specific business. We had that communication. Again, Constant Contact was a tool used by Candid for the Calendly invites, where I did send that information out to all the competitive persons within the application program for the community enhancement program. So we'll continue to do that if required to ensure that confidence.
And again, go ahead, Alderwoman. Oh, no, I was just going to say this resolution, again, allows up to $50,000 for us to further our engagement with Armanino to continue to provide that oversight as we begin funding these awards. I think it's still important for the public to understand that we have a third party that's continuing to check these files and make sure that we're following the procedures as outlined. And I think this is a worthwhile investment to build the public trust. I know that's one of the areas of recommendations from various public sources, is that we need to rebuild that trust around this program. And that is what we're planning to do by bringing in, again, a third party, following some of the recommendations that have been received from the public, and making the appropriate adjustments to start deploying these funds expeditiously. So with that, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Armanino, am I pronouncing it right?
Yes.
For this work. I tell you, as an alder and trying to continuously combat a lot of the false information that's out there, this right here is going to really help me in that conversation. And so when you talk about the conflict of interest disclosure forms, that was a big conversation on the floor during that legislative process. Luckily, our meetings are recorded on STLTV, so you can go back and listen to that, and you can see the comments that were made right around that topic, and specific comments that were made around that topic. I'm gonna tell you, I straddled that because at one stance, I understand this not being part of that process for obvious reasons, but I also understand the value in being a part of that process, if you can understand what I'm saying, because we as alders are closest to those businesses and closest to their actions that we see, hear, and feel in our communities. But I also, for the greater good, carrying their legislation, fought for it to not be a factor in that. So when you say it was pulled out since the legislation, that was one of the things that was done in the reconsideration of that. I don't know if your recommendations will say for them to be put in or not, put back in or not put back in, but I'll say that I think intentionally, because we don't know, right? Beforehand, even like for myself, when I noticed the conflict, my own personal conflict was when the list was presented to me. And so then I did, what I needed to do to recuse and be not a part of the conflict of interest on that specific one, but I didn't know prior to. How would we have known? Any of us as board members have known prior to. So we do it, that part, we are after the fact on that. I guess if I was going to think about it, maybe prior to, and it might have been part of the application, because I never saw an application before, I wasn't part of that process. But I would say maybe the applicant, and you all can clarify, this might have been in it. So I'm not saying that it wasn't, but I think it's important for the public to know that maybe the applicant needed to have disclosed a conflict of interest or a conflict prior to, versus them now trying to use a narrative that something was done nefariously on the back end when we had as directors here, had no idea of knowing. And I just wanted to, again, thank you and commend you for this work, the team for the work. I'm excited to be able to now help share this, and I'm very excited to hear that the program is moving forward. I would fight for that program today the same way I fought for it on the floor 2 years ago, 3 years ago, so there's no secret about that. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we have factual responses that we can share with our community to try to, I know we can't stop all of it because some of it is posturing, but we want to be able to have a position to stand on. So thank you for that work.
Thank you.
And if I could interrupt momentarily, I can't remember, Lance and Stanley, did we talk about the conflict of interest forms for applicants? I thought we talked about.
Yes.
Okay, so I probably didn't include that here. So that's an omission on my part there. All right.
directors. So within the application itself, the signing certifications does require an applicant to certify that they have not or do not have conflicts. And so that is within the application process itself. There is not a separate affidavit. It is a part of the formal application process where a business owner has to certify if they have conflicts.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, sir. Okay. So I know we're running over time here, directors, but I know this is really important for us to have this clarity and have this presentation from Armanino this morning. And again, I'm excited to be moving it forward now, but then making the appropriate adjustments to ensure that we're taking the input from the public into consideration as we make our funding recommendations as we move forward. So thank you again. With that, I would like to entertain a motion to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 981.
Second, Arnold.
The motion and second, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Arnold,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Colbert,
Aye.
Director Gilbert,
Aye.
Director Spencer,
Aye.
Director Reed,
Aye.
and Chair Richardson.
Aye. With all present voting aye, the motion passes to approve resolution number 24 SLDC 981. Now we'll move to the director's report, open agenda. So for the board members here, I know you all get questions about what is SLDC doing with all of these ARPA funds that we have received. SLDC has received $127 million. All of those funds have been fully obligated across 15 new programs. I want to take a moment to state that again, 15 new programs have been stood up at SLDC since 2021. And so that's a commendable achievement given all of the other work that we have on top of these efforts. And we, again, have now fully obligated those funds and have to expend them before the end of 2026. This report that I have shared today has been shared with the public before at the mayor's business luncheon, but it's been updated. And so what I want the board to be able to receive on a monthly basis is the outputs and impact that these ARPA funds are driving to the community. So then as you are getting questions, you have this information handy. We'll also be sharing this information more publicly with the public through our website and other communications to ensure that we have full transparency on how this work is moving forward. So I won't go into too much detail given the time, but I wanted you all to have this information as directors and the public and to provide us with any feedback, thoughts, or being able to share these great stories. The next item is save the date for the SLDC holiday party, December 13th, 2024, at 5 p.m. We look forward to having the board members present as well as our staff and other public officials to be able to celebrate all of the great work that we've done at SLDC and the city over the last year. I also want to acknowledge Caressa Davis, a member of our illustrious strategic partnerships and initiatives team on being recognized for the Deluxe Power 100 Award, recognizing some of the top leaders in business and community engagement across the St. Louis region. Kudos to her. And then last but not least, introducing our new VP of Communications and Public Relations, Mr. Dion Broxton. He is going to be continuing to work with us here at SLDC to ensure that we're not only engaging with the community and public, but that we are elevating these stories and also being able to have consistent communication with the media as we continue to roll out these programs, build that trust, and make sure all of their questions are answered. He will be working in partnership with the Candid marketing team. And so we will continue to make sure that as we continue to grow our brand, that we're elevating those stories and ensuring the appropriate narrative is getting out around these programs, and then also being responsive to any questions the public may have around the work that SLDC is leading. So we had a lot of work and a lot of things that we covered today. We have more work that we want to get done before the end of the year. So I'll be following up with you all about, potential another session that we will have in person in December, in addition to our next regular scheduled board meeting, which is being held December 19th, 2024. And that will be in person again if you all can make it down, and hopefully we have the parking figured out for you all next time. But again, I really appreciate everyone joining in person. It felt so good to have just everyone's spirit in this room as we continue to drive the work forward. And with that, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. With a motion and a second, the meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.